On today's show, we're going to look back at the best moments of the 2022-2023 Cavs regular season. Let's dive right in.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, where first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That is PrizePicks.com. The promo code is LOCKEDON. All right, I'm Chris Manning. That man over there is Evan Dammarrell. Jake Stevens is producing this one as always. Please go check out The Merrier on your music platform of choice. And the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. So today's episode, we're going to have a ton of playoff preview content. We have a crossover plan with the Locked On Knicks guys. We are going to have our own little solo one before the game on Saturday. We're going to have you covered for that series. So before we do that, while we're waiting for the plane to sort itself out, all of that stuff, we're going to look back at the best regular season moments. We're going to look back and say, okay, what are the moments we stick out for us? We're each going to pick three in this episode. And then on our episode that comes out, a little after this on Tuesday, because we're going to double up for you, we are going to have the things we learned from the Cavs season plus a little bit of a word stock. But Evan, I'm going to give you the floor first. What's your first moment? And here's the other thing. We do not know. I purposely set this up so we do not know each other's moments. I blacked mine out when I made the document, and then Evan, unless he peeked and he didn't tell me, does not know what I picked, and I have no idea what he picked. Evan, what is your first moment?
So, full disclosure, no, I did not pick. Or peek, rather. I texted Chris. I was really tempted to peek just to make sure we didn't have the same talking points, but I didn't. And then he said peaked with an A, and I said I peaked much earlier in life, and he didn't understand a bit. Like I peaked in
guess what? My brain,
early college.
Here's
it's
the thing.
All been downhill from there.
Thing. Evan knows this better than most people right now. My brain is currently goop.
You know what made my brain goop, man? And my first pivotal highlight moment for the Cavs this season, when they acquired Donovan Mitchell in the offseason. That was really the catalyst of just everything going forward in this one, and it was huge for Cleveland. I think obviously they were building off a very strong season last year, but they went out and got their guy, who is clearly just, based on Rudy Gobert punches and Trae Young now being available in trade talks and just everything in between, was the big winner other than the Suns going all in to get a superstar like they did with Kevin Durant. But the Cavs went and got their guy in Donovan Mitchell. They believed in their heart of hearts, hey, we have something really strong here between Garland, Mobley, and Allen. Let's accentuate that with another superstar and also just kind of push us in this direction where we can reach the playoffs. And now that we know after they clinched, Donovan Mitchell made it crystal clear to the guys, listen, we're making the playoffs. And with how Cleveland, sure, there are some ups and downs and some growing pains in between with adding Mitchell to this roster, but they're set up beautifully. And again, this moment, which took a lot of us by surprise because the team Cleveland's facing in the first round of the playoffs was who we all expected him as in Donovan Mitchell to end up with. But ultimately, he ended up as a Cavalier, and it took a lot of us by surprise, and it was a huge deal for the Cavs, clearly, because they're now kind of primed for the foreseeable future.
We were very much in off-season mode at that point. We did our
golfing, like Donovan Mitchell, when I found out.
Yeah, we were doing the episode that we did at the time was this big two-parter, fantasy drafts, bid on guys and draft them. I was like, all right, it's the off-season, we can have some fun. We're kind of through it. There'd been a little bit of Donovan Mitchell Cavs smoke, but nothing,
I think 2 days before the trade dropped, we both agreed it's not going to happen. I just don't see a path where he becomes a Cavalier.
Yeah, or that it just didn't feel super likely. We didn't think the white papal smoke, it was coming out of Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, right? We were just but it makes sense that they would be sniffing around a star. We understood that and hit that. And then they do this trade, and it sets this whole season in motion. I think that is a great one. I think that one makes an absolute ton of sense. Mine is all.
What's your pick?
My number one is also Donovan Mitchell one, but I just went straight to the biggest moment of the year, which is Donovan Mitchell scoring 71 points. This is one of the this is just like he had an all-NBA year. He to me should be like 5th or 6th in your MVP ballot. He was the best player on the Cavs, I think, like pretty clearly. And he has this 71-point game that, you see it in person. I think like, maybe it's because we saw it in person, but for me, like I have it as ahead of like the Dame 71-point game. And it was just like a night where like, there's no Garland. They're just like struggling with this Bulls team that they're better than. And he just kind of had to will, like, it's just like you needed him to score 71. Like encapsulated by the fact that he misses a free throw and collects on rebound and gets it. And yes, he committed the lane violation, but like he did the thing. And he just was like, okay, like I have to go score 71. Like I'm going to do it and I'm going to carry this team my back. And it was just like the encapsulation of, I think, like, how Mitchell has approached this season. It's just like, what do I need to do to win? What do I need to elevate myself? What do I need to do to elevate this Cavs team? And Evan, the other thing I'll never forget is when there's post-game media, and Donovan Mitchell obviously talks. But they brought Kevin Love out. And I love that they brought Kevin Love out because there's no one on that Cavs roster. There was never anything quite like you have Kevin Love come out and he tells you the history of the game and he tells you the things he's seen and he's like, I've never seen anything quite like that. And think about that. Like maybe some of it is just saying it, but this is a guy that made the finals with LeBron. This is a guy that won a title. Like it, and he was still just like in awe. And I think that tells you something about how special that moment was.
I mean, it truly was special. You and I were clearly exasperated from the press box just seeing it firsthand. I had a recap written up where like, well, the Cavs laid an egg against a lousy Bulls squad, but alas, we move forward. And then Donovan Mitchell kind of erupted, and it was a surreal experience. To your point, Damian Lillard also scoring 71 points. I don't think darkens or lessens the shine of Donovan Mitchell scoring 71 because, like you said, the Cavs needed every single one of those points, and more so the fact like he scored or assisted on 99 of, I believe, Cleveland's 116 points in that game. Like he was practically everything for the Cavs in this one, or just in this game in general. And like, for me at least, if you had any trepidations or maybe just didn't have a full understanding or appreciation of Donovan Mitchell's game, if you weren't fully on the train after that moment, like there's something wrong with you or you just don't have a pulse, because this was a guy who had a career-defining moment and then proceeded to continuously have the best season of his NBA career when he has a pretty stellar NBA career up to this point when he joined the Cavs. And I mean, that's the pretty clear pick. Like, that's the biggest highlight, at least, of the regular season for the Cavs. I think there's other, like, maybe more minute or niche picks we could make as well. But Donovan Mitchell has just been worth every single thing the Cavs paid for him and then some. And he's still entering his prime, or at least he's in it at this point, and he's only going to get better as long as the rest of the guys get better. And it's a fun time just to see like what he's fully capable of. And I think, like I said, if you had any trepidations or reservations about Mitchell, if they weren't erased, I think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, I think he's just had a crazy season. This is just as a teaser, not the last time something related to Donovan Mitchell will appear on my list, because he's just, to me, has been so front and center of the season.
I'll spoil something. I have nothing to say about Donovan Mitchell after this segment.
There's one thing that I just also like will never forget being there for, and that's a good. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, where first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code Locked On. All I got to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, the NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, and a ton more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. Remember, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter that promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Evan, I'll go into my next one because this is the Donovan Mitchell related one. And honestly, like, I don't really know how this isn't on your list. Do you remember the time Donovan Mitchell and Dillon Brooks got into a little scuffle, and then Donovan Mitchell proceeded to show up post-game without the team PR staff, like, knowing he was coming, just to talk a bunch of crap about Dillon Brooks? Do you remember this? I
do. I do remember it. It was the flashpoint moment, I think, for the Cavs not really taking as much crap from teams anymore. And like, I know Dillon Brooks is dressed like Nandor from What We Do in the Shadows recently, but Donovan Mitchell was kind of saying, I feel, what a lot of players were feeling at that point, just about Dillon Brooks, maybe the Grizzlies in general, because they're that seemingly like fake tough and acting like they've earned all this respect and everything. And Mitchell's just like, nah, I'm going to call a spade a spade. These dudes are fake and they keep getting away with this crap. So he was willing to put his money on the line and maybe criticize the officiating or how the NBA is handling it. And nothing really came of it repercussion wise. But yeah, that was a big moment. I had a feeling you might have mentioned it and I thought about it, but I'm like, no, I'm going to go a little weirdo with my pick. So
I just like, when I sat down and made my list, I wrote it out. And I'm like, okay, what are the things that are just like seared into my brain that like I'm going to be thinking about like 6 months from now, and or things that I think explain this season. And I like this is a thing where like I think like next year there would be more note taking and kind of tracking throughout the season just to make sure there's not like little stuff I may be forgetting. I just like when an NBA player goes out of his way to come in, and we can't say the exact quote because we're not allowed to swear on this podcast. And he says, "I've been busting
He's been busting his behind for years."
Yes,
to be honest with you,
and just say like, and it set off like the year of the Dillon Brooks heel turn. Like this is like the year of Dillon Brooks being the ultimate NBA heel, and it started when he hit Donovan Mitchell in the nuts in Cleveland, Ohio. Like, really, this is just like a seminal Dillon Brooks moment for whatever that means. But this is also just like a really big moment for Mitchell. Just like, I'm not taking any guff. I'm not taking anything. I'm not gonna deal with this, right? Like, this was just, in the arena, it was just like chaos. Like,
oh yeah,
like
it was just so confusing what was going on from the press box, and then there's an instant replay on TV. You're like, oh no, he hit him in the pride. Like that. Yeah, it's kind of an unspoken rule, just in anything. Like, you just don't hit another dude in that region.
There's nothing as chaotic really as like NBA scraps in arena. They just nothing quite look like them. So this is on my list. Evan, what's your next one?
So again, mine's a little more niche, and I was thinking about just how he has just been so amazing as a player this year for the Cavs, and just like his transcendent growth. But you really got a full perspective of what Evan Mobley can be as a player for the Cavs, and it's not just through scoring. When he had 16 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 blocks against the Pistons, he was clearly, I mean, it's the Pistons. I believe the Cavs were down some players in this one, but it was in March 3rd, so it's a little recent. But Mobley was just all over the place, and you're like, okay, this is the moment where you're like, this is the dude who could really take the Cavs places once he hits that level. And I remember, again, like, him and Isaiah aren't the same player, but I think about how Brendan Hughes, like, there's intangible ways we track winning for Isaiah, and I wonder how much of that is applicable to his brother. And in that moment, it's like, okay, he has a double-double, almost has a triple-double with assists, which is crazy for a big man, but the 4 blocks as well are impressive. And an honorable mention when he has 8 blocks against the Pistons early in the season when they have no Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland in this game, or that game rather. But like, this was just the game for him. Like, holy cow, Evan Mobley is just really setting himself up nicely for success and proving a lot of those critics and naysayers that were kind of just ready to sell the ship on him early into the season, as he kind of tried to figure out where he fit in this new Cavs dichotomy, and then just kind of continue to grow confidence in himself and just in his game in general.
I have a Mobley thing that is my last one, so we'll be talking more about him. But this is a great call. He has had so many games between like February and now that have just been like, this guy is a superstar. This guy is a budding 2-way superstar. This guy is one of the most dominant defensive forces in the league. And like we've hit a point with him where like at least once a game he's doing something defensively that is just like unreal.
How did he do that?
Like it's just at a certain point it just kind of it's like you don't want to get numb to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to get numb to it because like he's just gonna keep doing this and he's probably gonna keep getting better is what I would imagine. But like there's just there's like most of the games I feel like you could find something between like February and March and it's just like dang.
Dang is a good way to put it. He is truly a special player. I know the Cavs are very fortunate to get the best player from that draft class at 3rd overall, and I spoke about this with Nick Angstad. Evan Mobley was the catalyst of the Cavs turnaround last season, just from becoming like a bit of a bottom feeder to an Eastern Conference hopeful, and this continued transcendence of his game this year has really set the Cavs up nicely. Where sure they're the 4 seed and the 4 or 5 can be a bit of a toss up, but like Evan Mobley could be the deciding factor against the Knicks, and he could be the deciding factor in the playoffs. And we stress this all the time on the show. The more Mobley grows in this postseason heading into next year is going to start setting the notion of how far can the Cavs go and how far more so is Evan Mobley willing to take them, because he just has so much of a wide casting impact on this game. And it's just always just crazy to watch him just function as a player and just work out there as a player too.
He's going to be fun in the playoffs. We should note there is a report from the New York Post. This is vis-a-vis related to Randall that the Knicks will not know until later this week if they will have Randall. He is making, quote, steady progress, is what Tibbs said the other day. But we will see. We don't exactly know yet if Julius Randle is going to play, and that feels like a big deal in one way, shape, or form.
I agree. I think we'll talk about this more with the Locked On Knicks guys, but Isaac Okoro's health, Chris Fedor noted that if the games actually mattered, Okoro will probably be out there for the Cavs, but Okoro's health and also just whether Randall's available or not could kind of set the tone early for how this series goes for either team.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Basketball GM. It is the coolest game I've played in a long time. I've always thought I could be a great NBA GM, as it turns out, and it's really hard. This is a game that requires a lot of thought, and if you've had the same thought about wanting to be an NBA GM and fantasized about it, then you can go do this now and start your own basketball franchise in the Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and advance to glory as you build a historic dynasty. In the simulation, you're responsible for dealing with challenging personalities, that's players and coaches, hiring the right coaches and assistants, trading players / making draft picks, and navigating your franchise through free agency in the draft and all of the ups and downs. All of this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. I know a ton of Locked On NBA hosts have been having a really good time with this, so you should go check it out too. Locked On Cavs listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON in the game store, so make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the App Store. That's probasketballgm.com, ultimateprobasketballgm.com. Start your dynasty today. So, Evan, I'll go into my Mobley one to kick us off here. I picked this game he had. It was in New Orleans, sometime in February. And to me, this felt like the game that was a preview of what was to come from Evan Mobley. Mm-hmm. He is an utter two-way monster. He is hitting he's hitting kind of pull-ups in the mid. He is scoring at the rim, and he's just absolutely destroying shots on both ends of at the rim on defense. Like he had a block in the game that when I was going back and watching highlights, I didn't know how he did it. It just felt like he poofed out of nowhere and blocked it, and it's just so casual. And he just kind of like was the dominant two-way guy in this game. It was a road game. It was I think maybe a Friday night game. It wasn't a game that I'm sure like every single person was plugged into. But this to me, when I went back and looked at it, felt like the catalyst game for the rest of your game. I think you could pick Like a lot of games between like February and March that really kick off his surge, and that kind of leads to him being where he's at now. But to me, this was the one that really stood out in retrospect.
So, shouts out to our sponsor, Ultimate Basketball GM. There's a lot of folks on Twitter that were pretty critical of Evan Mobley, or just, that's just 1% of the fan base, but it's the crap I read every day. This was a great pick as well, just because Evan Mobley, it's not a coming out party because he's always been an elite player, and especially more so an elite prospect. But this was just the moment where you're like, okay, yeah, this dude is for real. This is legit. This is a guy Chris and I, or at least myself, have been stressing on this show for a while prior to the Cavs drafting Evan Mobley, that they kind of needed the quote unquote dude on their roster. Like, Evan Mobley could have been that dude with or without Donovan Mitchell. Just adding Donovan Mitchell made Evan Mobley's transition a heck of a lot easier because there's way less offensive pressure on him from the get. But this was a great pick. Evan Mobley's just a really special player, and I think that this game against the Pelicans, like, yes, there's that crazy block you mentioned, but this showed a little bit more of just his offensive scoring repertoire and like how he's capable of killing you in a myriad of ways. And if you kind of just take that game and the Pistons game I pointed out and merge them together, like, you get a pretty clean understanding of what the full package of Evan Mobley could be for the Cavs when he hits that just apex. And again, don't know what that ceiling is going to be for him, and it's kind of fun to fathom what it could possibly be. But this is an excellent pick. Like, he was just otherworldly in this game, as has he been for the majority of the Cavs post All-Star break season.
Yeah. All right. What is yours?
So again, no Donovan Mitchell. My pick is also not Evan Mobley in this one, but another player Cavs fans were down on, but maybe more so than Evan Mobley, because I think people just saw the vision with him more, was Isaac Okoro. And it was his game-winning shot against Brooklyn. I think it, one, showed the confidence the coaching staff and especially his teammates have in him, but it's just like the biggest shot of Isaac Okoro's career, and you can't understate just the significance of it, because he is a player who defenses sag off of continuously on the perimeter. He is a guy that you and I stressed for the longest time that if he was going to make the next step and maybe be that fifth banana in the Cavs lineup as a guy who's cool, scoring 8 to 10 points a night, but mostly playing solid defense and giving you shots, he needs to keep defenses honest on the perimeter. And it was an instance of Caris LeVert just kind of having the wherewithal and the trust in his teammate to kick it back out to him. And Isaac Okoro made the Nets and pay for it and validated Caris LeVert's beliefs. And I think that was just like a moment where you're like, okay, Isaac Okoro, there's something here. And this is after him kind of having a strong second half of the season, especially after he was kind of permanently entrenched in the starting lineup as the starting three. And you can see the vision a bit more for the Cavs if you have this Okoro who has a bit more swagger, a bit more confidence, especially in his offensive game. And it was just it was a crazy moment, because that series in Brooklyn, I was there in person, but more than anything, like, there were two fascinating wins, because like there's the Yuta Watanabe poster the game before that, but like Isaac Okoro hitting the game winner, it's probably not anything really anyone expected in this like 2 games and 3 nights foray, the back end of a 2 games and 3 night foray in Brooklyn for Cleveland.
This was the hardest one to cut, because it just felt so symbolic of the journey Okoro has been on this year, of like where he has come from. I think maybe I didn't pick it, Evan, just because like this is really like I know he played 9 minutes the last game, but like the last memory we have of him playing right now is that shot. And like that's like weird, just because he got hurt, and like that's obviously not his fault. Like, things happen.
Yeah.
You know, they said he was playing through it. Like, maybe the knee was bothering that night, obviously more than we knew. But like, it just, that shot was just like, he did it. Like, the boogeyman is like off his back to some degree. Like it felt like something that was just like would really push him forward. And like, maybe it still will. I'll be curious like what he looks like in the playoffs. Does he start right away? Like, what is his minutes load? All of that stuff. But that felt like such a catalyst in real time. It was one of those things where like there's like some road games, obviously, and even some home games where like, you know, we do the media, but like you don't feel like there's always a ton to say or a ton to really glean. That's one of those nights where I'd have loved to have seen everything Okoro had to say and what he had to talk about, and kind of and dive into him, just kind of what is on his brain after a moment like that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I picked his brain post game on it, and actually a few days before that I had asked him just straight up, like, do you feel disrespected when defenses sag off of you like that? And he said, not really, I just have to make those shots. Like, he's being realistic. But JB
he also doesn't say anything, so like maybe I'm also just like,
He's gotten more comfortable talking to the media, and he's certainly like cocky in a confident way at times.
He has a personality, and I think he just like kind of chooses not to like show, which is fine. I think him and Darius are actually kind of similar in that regard.
They're both just soft-spoken dudes who usually keep it within their inner circle or just the guys they're tight with, which I respect. I am the same way more often than not. But Okoro did joke, he's like, man, maybe JB needs to keep me in the end of game rotations more often after a shot like this. But it was just a big moment for him because he's like, there's not many opportunities you get like that, especially just with the context of the season he kind of had, especially from the perimeter, and us kind of waiting for him to maybe make that jump as a perimeter shooter, just at least a respectable 3-point shooter. And the fact that he's able just to kind of take and make that shot, and he looked very confident taking and making that shot too, like that's just going to be huge for his development in the long term. And it's just a fun moment for Isaac Okoro, who had a lot of up and downs up to this point. He was coming off the bench to start the season and sometimes seldom playing. There's times he was DNP, coach's decisions. There's times he started, then there's times it just like there's no certainty with his role. But then after Karis LeVert was relegated back to the bench after he asked JB Bickerstaff to, the Cavs kind of did a revolving door with Lamar Stevens and Dean Wade, but Wade went down to injury. Then like Okoro played well for a little bit, and he continues to keep giving the Cavs coaching staff the benefit of the doubt to keep earning those minutes and those times just in moments like that. And it's just cool to watch player development kind of click like that in real time. We're never around this team fully, clearly, and there's only so much we get to look at through the lens of media availability, but like that was kind of a moment where like it crystallizes a little bit how much time, energy, and resources the Cavs invest in Okoro, and also just like how hard Okoro worked on his game just to kind of feel more comfortable taking shots like that. Because maybe early in the season he passes it to a different teammate instead of taking that shot, or maybe just trying to rip it against the net or just anyone.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna end there. We'll be back tomorrow talking about the things we learned and talking about some awards. We've got a bunch more to dive through in the lead up to Cavs playoff basketball. I think it's going to Jake Stevens for producing. Back at you tomorrow.